a 5-episode true crime series by Law and Order creator Dick Wolf, which dives into some of New York City's most notorious crimes, shot to the top of the Netflix charts in the first 5 days of its release, making Homicide, New York, the third most popular English-language series on the streamer last week. You can read what happened in these cases on Wikipedia, but you don't get the human side of the story. Executive producer Jane Lipsitz said of Homicide, New York, detectives, friends and families of the victims and survivors of the 5 crimes are used to tell the decades-old stories showcased in Homicide, New York. The first episode tells the story of the 2001 Carnegie Deli Massacre, in which 2 men, Smith and Sean Salley, were convicted of second-degree murder in the shooting deaths of 3 people in a robbery gone wrong. The murders of Jennifer Stahl, Charles, Trey, Helliwell and Stephen King took place in an apartment above the Carnegie Delicatessen in Manhattan. The 1997 stabbing of Michael McMorrow, who was found floating in Central Park Lake, is one of New York's most notorious and gruesome cases. In Homicide, New York, NYPD detective Rob Mooney talks about the twisted confessions and motives behind the murder. It took 4 days for investigators to find the body of Eridania Rodriguez, a cleaner in Manhattan's financial district, after she seemingly disappeared into thin air after starting her shift. The third episode of Homicide, New York, details the arrest of her assailant, Joseph Pabon, though no motive for the crime was ever revealed. He will become eligible for parole in 2034. It wasn't until 2 decades after Midtown business owner Howard Pilmar was found stabbed to death in 1996 that detectives were able to make a homicide case stick against his wife and her brother, who were found guilty of second-degree murder charges in 2019. In the 4th episode of the new Netflix series, NYPD Lieutenant Roger Parrino recalls his tireless work to hold Pilmar's killers accountable. The final episode of Homicide, New York, dives into the case of the so-called East-Harlem Rapist, a serial killer and sexual assailant who tormented the community of East Harlem for almost a decade, starting in 1991. It was later discovered that Arohn Kee, now 50, was responsible for the deaths of at least 3 teenage girls and 4 rapes in his late teens and early 20s. He is currently serving a life sentence. A similar docuseries titled Homicide, Los Angeles, also made by Wolf, will premiere later this year. An exact date has not been announced.